Pay-per-click, pay-per-lead, direct mailers, commission. There's so many different lead sources or ways you can grow your construction business. How do you know which one's best? Don't guess. Let's actually let the numbers tell you. So welcome back to another week of our trainings where we help you get more leads, close more sales, or improve your profitability. We're going to actually walk you through a quick calculator tool that my clients use to make this really, really simple, because the easy thing to do is just to think, well, which one do I think I like the most? And really what your business requires is that you make these kinds of decisions based on numbers. And so we're going to show you how to really compare each one of these, because each one has its own difference and nuances and what numbers to pay attention to so you make the right call for your business. So actually, it's a little bit of inspiration because we had somebody post and ask a question the other day. And they go, well, what should my daily ad spend be? Well, and I talked a little bit about this in an earlier video, but well, that kind of depends. But once you know what you're spending, use these numbers to be able to help make sure you're accurately comparing and contrasting the different ways you could get your leads. So I've got something we'll show you, walk you through the tool. If you want a copy of this, let's go with just numbers. Just drop numbers in the comments and I'll send you a copy of this tool so you can make numbers-based decisions, not gut-based decisions. So let's dig in. All right, so we're going to start with the far left with the paper lead. So think of this like your Thumbtack, your LSA, your Google Verified, or your Angie's List, or anywhere else where all you're doing is paying for the lead. Here's a couple numbers to be able to make sure you're comparing it. And it's all the thing that makes it all even is your cost to acquire the customer, or your CAC. Maybe this is a number you've heard before, but that's really the number we want to use to really equalize all these different sources to make sure we're evaluating them correctly. And so you know really where to put your focus, where to put your budget, where to put your energy. So let's talk about the cost per lead ones first. Let's assume that, and you should know this when you first log in and start getting leads from your Google Verified or your LSA account, what your cost per lead is. That's pretty explicit. It's pretty easy. They tell you what that is, either for a phone lead or a text lead. And so for this example, let's just say it's $30 or $15. Everything in yellow, by the way, to use this calculator right, that's where you got to put the numbers in. Everything that's not in yellow is where we've got formulas to do some of the math for you. And I'll talk a little bit more about how it's actually not even as bad as it looks, because some of these you can just pull straight from the sources that you're getting your leads from, or that you're running your ads with. So we'll go back to that. So first thing would be, let's say, again, you're paying $30 a lead. Well, let's take a look at what is your bid rate. Because again, each one of these lead sources, they're going to have differences when it comes to what percentage of them turn into bids, what percent, and how many of them you close. Because their quality is different across all these different areas, right? So if it's $30 per lead and you bid, let's say 45%, your cost per bid, it calculates that for you, is $67. And if you close 30% of those, then your cost to acquire that customer through a phone lead, through a pay-per-lead, pay-per-phone call source, is $222. And let's say that, okay, in that same source, you can also get text leads. Again, think of LSA. Text leads are $15. You bid those a little bit less because they're not quite as interested. They're not quite as warm. So maybe those only bid at 30%. So your cost per bid is $50. And then let's just say you still close as the same. 30%, your cost to acquire is $167. So again, one of the things you can use that's nice about this tool is that, let's just say that you notice that, hey, we actually only close text leads at 20%. Okay, well then that puts it at $250. Or maybe we actually close them better because maybe you qualify them better. Maybe you have some back and forth and you do more over text than you can over the phone. I don't know. You know your business better than I do when it comes to those actual numbers, but you got to be tracking these. Let's say that you close those at 40%. Then you can see how that really drops the acquisition cost or the cost to acquire. So we'll leave it at 30 for now, but you can see how those play out. Let's just say that maybe if you're a cost per lead because you're looking for, maybe you're in HVAC, maybe you're looking for ADU leads or basement finish leads or bathroom models. Those can be a little bit higher. So if those are $100, again, you can see where that cost to acquire can be a little bit higher. It just does the math for you based on all of the numbers. So still, if you're looking at cost per lead, $100, and these other numbers hold true for you, then it costs you $741 to get that project. But hopefully these things are multi-5-figure or 6-figure projects, so not too bad when it comes to that. But just want to show you how this thing works. All right, that's pay per lead. Pretty straightforward. Let's start with the simple ones. Now let's look over at pay per click. So think of this like your traditional Google pay-per-click ads or Facebook ads or anywhere else where you're paying for every single click that happens. Typically, when you buy these, or your agency or someone on your team, whoever it is, how Google and all the platforms sell these is based on number of impressions. So when you're spending money, you pay on the click, but you also, part of how they figure out what your click rate is going to be based on how many impressions you're going to buy. Now, there are other ways to where you can also buy per impression. So if you're paying for impressions or how many people are going to see your ad, then this calculator works for those as well. So you just need to, this has all that into account. So let's just say that for every 10,000, the CPM, that's a number that, again, the platforms will tell you that ones you can ask and find out. They call it CPM. It's cost per thousand. The CPM is cost per milli. It's a Latin term. So there you go. That's why it's CPM, not CPT. They'll tell you what that is. And it'll, when you log in or when you first start creating your campaigns, let's say it's $6. Well, if the next number, so these numbers will be based on what you buy it at. The next one is your click-through rate. And your click-through rate, again, I've got some little prompts in here. That's going to be how much, when people see your ad, what percentage of them click on it. That's going to be affected by the quality of your ad, the audience, your selection, your targeting, all the things you're doing, they're going into that. It's another number that either you can see inside the platform or your agency or someone on your team should be able to tell you. That's a number that, again, you tell me what it is, but this is where you punch it in. So if you're buying impressions at 10,000 impressions, cost you $6. Your click-through rate is 1.52%. Your cost per click is 40 cents. So this is where you can plug in the numbers manually. If you're buying on impressions, if you're buying it based on clicks, you can skip these top numbers and just punch in what your cost per click is if that's how you're paying for the ad. All right. For every single click though, but what a click, we can't turn into money, right? The click has to turn into something else. So once they click, they go somewhere to your website, ideally a campaign specific landing page that matches what they saw. Don't just send pay-per-click ads or any paper impression ads to your website generically. It won't convert as well. We can help you fix that if that's something that you're doing right now. If that's what you're doing right now, time out, pause it, and come back and fix it so you have a specific landing page. You'll convert better. So then we get into conversion rate. We put in 2%, which is like, let's just assume that 2% of people of clicks that come to the form or come to the landing page decide to give you information that you can actually do something with, like a phone number or an email address or both. If that happens, then your cost per lead is, in this case, it calculates it for you at $19.97. Same as before. Now that we've got that number, we can say, well, okay, what percentage of those do turn into a bid? There's my cost per bid. What percentage of those do I close? There's my customer acquisition cost. So you can see how this all kind of flows through based on, again, whether you're doing pay-per-click based on paying for clicks or paying for just the impressions or how many people are going to see it. Again, depending on how you have your campaign set up, they work both ways based on who you're looking for. But that'll give you an idea of how to do it. Okay, moving on. So another common source is I help people with, or that I get questions about a lot, is what about direct mail? Well, direct mail, you typically buy by the number of mail pieces, right? So let's just say in this example, you bought 105,000 mail pieces, or again, you punch in whatever number you're buying as far as postcards are going out or mailers getting sent. And then what your CPM rate is for those. This will tell me that you spent, what was that, about $100, about $600, $700 for that. So then you want to be able to track your click-through rates. You can actually track your click-through rates if you do your mailers right. So when you do your mailers, don't just put your website on there by itself. Okay. Put a QR code that has your website linked to it, because then you can also put a tracking link so you know how many people who saw your mailer actually go to your website. Okay. That gives you a comparison so you know how many clicks you're getting or how many visits to your website that are coming from your direct mail piece. Then you've got your conversion rate. Everything else kind of tracks the same. Now, on your mailers, if you have a phone number, which you probably should, you can also you can skip down to where you just know what your cost per call is. But again, when you have your phone number on the mailers, don't just have your generic phone number. Use a specific trackable phone number. It's not that hard. It's simple. And ideally, you can also plug that in to a CRM so you can track those calls uniquely so you know how many actual phone calls you got from the mailer as opposed to just anybody who called you from anywhere else. If you need help with setting that stuff up, let me know. We do those kinds of things all the time, but I like to know what's working, what's not working. I like to use numbers to tell the truth rather than just guess. So There's another simple way where you can, again, track how many phone calls you get, which would be your cost per lead, or and then that gets you your cost per lead based on what you spent. Same thing, bid rate, cost per bid, close rate. You kind of get the rhythm of this now, right? Okay. Last part, two other potential sources. We talked about commissions. Well, maybe if your average job is 10 grand and you're going to pay somebody 10%. Cool. I only have to pay if I actually close it. That's going to be $1,000 acquisition cost. How does that compare with all these others? Okay. So that ought to be something else you can look at. We know that the hang up with commission jobs is that we just never know when they're going to come in, or you're relying on somebody else to do the work. So it's harder to be, it's not quite as scalable, not as predictable as some of these other channels once you get your numbers dialed in. But at least this way you can evaluate like what are all the other costs associated to be able to compare these equally. I threw in one more for joint venture or partnership leads. So because we have, let's just say that you're in HVAC and you have a joint venture with a plumber. Hey, plumber, every job you send me, I'll pay you $100 a lead, or every phone call you send me, I'll pay you $100 a lead. Great, you just do it on a lead basis rather than on a commission basis for the job, because that's another common type of relationship you got to set up if you don't have some of those already. Not a bad thing to try and have you add another source to the mix. So again, we've got a way to be able to say, well, here's what my agreed upon cost per lead is for that source, that referral or joint venture partner. Here's what I typically bid those at. Bid them at 50%. So I know my cost per bid. I know what they typically close. Now you've got a cost per acquisition to make everything even. So we walk through 5 different ways you can evaluate how you get leads. If you want a copy of this tool, then let me know. Just drop, again, I think we said numbers in the comments and we'll send it over to you. But this is a way where you can start to use numbers and actually make the right decisions rather than just relying on gut feel. We will see you next week.